Hello everyone, Mike Levin, Thursday, February 12th, 2015, around 8 a.m., walking the big guy, and it's blissfully warm enough this morning to shoot this video and have my hand holding the camera. And that's a good thing because I'm overflowing with ideas. They're coming a mile a minute. Sometimes I need to really think about what I want to talk about ahead of time for these videos. This morning, not so much. Status update on Pipulate. The current work is broken into two tinier pieces that is trending so that you can draw, trending lines like search engine position lines, the movement over time, which involves collecting metrics on a scheduled basis. And there's the trending behavior part of that, which is what happens when you tell Pipulate to grab some metrics. Does it grab all the metrics it's supposed to for that time interval? Or does it just grab one and then wait a little while? And or maybe grab two and wait a little while. There's a lot of ways to slice and dice it, and how do you define that behavior? And that portion I just finished last night, so that every time you hit the Pipulate bookmarklet, it will grab a predefined number of rows. It'll Pipulate an X number of rows as defined by the config tab, and it will continue to do so until it has processed all the rows for the latest cycle it's processing. And then when that cycle is over, it creates a new set of rows and does it again. Now, I still have to put a time window restraint on it so that when you set it to every minute or hourly or daily, it knows to not create the new set of rows once the rows for the current time window are finished until you enter the new time window. So I got that tiny little piece done, but or still to do, but otherwise the sophisticated trending behavior is done. And then the other side of the project is the scheduler itself, which can be incredibly dumb. All it has to do is come in and Pipulate that document on say an every 10-minute basis. It has to be small enough so that the smallest time interval gets processed. So for debugging, Pipulate will probably attempt to Pipulate the document every 90 seconds or so. Not 90, let's see, that would be 50 seconds or so. So that if you put a minute interval, you can sit there in debugging mode and watch, say, 3 rows get processed in the first minute, and then sit there and wait until the next minute rolls around, and then it processes the next 3 rows, and so on. More typically, you'll set the time interval to hourly or daily or weekly or monthly. So I'm really pumped about that. I'm going to be able to demonstrate all this except for the actual scheduling. I'll be able to demonstrate the trending behavior this morning to Flying Point Digital, and having the trending behavior working is as good as demonstrating the scheduling for demo purposes, because each time you click the bookmarklet, it processes X number of rows until it's finished, and then inserts a new set of rows. And that's very impressive to see happening. The difference between that and actually having a dumb scheduler come in and click the button every minute or every 10 minutes is trivial. And I feel really good about being at that point in the project. That was a long time in coming. This type of system now has been envisioned in my head since, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years or so. I've wanted to do something like this, but I've never really had the opportunity to sit down and code it. Ever since I realized what Google spreadsheet was evolving into, and web grids in general, web-based spreadsheets. I wish it didn't have to be Google spreadsheets in particular, but it does provide a bunch of other stuff that nothing else out there provides. And I really looked and tried. There's something called EtherCalc. I believe that's what it's called, but it's a free and open source collaborative web spreadsheet whose lineage, whose heritage is actually from the same people who did the original VisiCalc on the Apple II. And given my deep love of all things that are descendants of the original cool stuff, like Raspberry Pis are descendants of the Commodore 64, albeit a competitor or a response to the C64 when Acorn Computing of the UK decided to respond to the Commodore dominance challenge on the planet by teaming up with Apple and VLSI to create the first ARM processors that powered some of those early Acorn computers. I think one called the Archimedes or something. And that has evolved into the processor that's in every iPhone and Android phone out there today. So yes, the phone you might be watching this video on is more directly a descendant of the Commodore 64 or a competitive response to the Commodore 64 than it is the whole Intel Windows lineage of computers, or even the Mac, because the Motorola 6800 and 68000 chips that the original Mac was based on were not exactly in the lineage of those $25 cheap CPUs so that home computers and cheap microcontrollers could be brought to the masses. It's in the lineage of the Intel 8088 and 8086, and then the x86 traditional PCs that we know today. It was a competitive response to those, the way the ARM chip was a competitive response to Commodore's MOS 6502 and 6510 chips that were in the Commodore 64 and the Apple IIs, which interestingly was a competitive response to Motorola. They were kind of very, very lightweight clones of the 6800 chips of the day. So much history there. Boy, I wish I could bring all this to you, and wonderful characters too. People like Chuck Peddle, who did the original work to copy the Motorola chip and make the first 6502 branch of processors. Well, I really went off on a tangent on this, but still just 6 minutes into the video, so I don't feel so bad. I talked about where my latest work is at, how there's this trending component, which is pretty much done, and then the scheduling component, which isn't done, but is going to be brain dead simple because of how well I implemented trending. And then I could go on with other stuff. I'm having a real brainstorm here. I'm going to implement or incorporate a slideshow, a PowerPoint-like slideshow, directly into the Pipulate pop-up window interface using this wonderful JavaScript library called remark.js, which you can see in use right now if you visit levinix.com. And it takes a simple text file and turns it into a very PowerPoint-like presentation in a web browser. So visit levinix.com to see the kind of slideshow tutorial that will soon be built into the Pipulate pop-up window. And then the last idea that I had is how I'm going to evolve Levinix, because Pipulate was designed so that it will run on a very, very lightweight version of Linux that runs as a virtual machine on the desktop of Macs or Windows or other Linux machines. So that can be your Pipulate server if you want to sort of peel off your Pipulate network so that all the scheduling and everything works independently of me, independently of everything but Google itself for the use of Google Docs. You can just download Levinix, double click it, build it into a Pipulate server, give it its own Gmail address, and then you share in that Gmail address to your Pipulate scheduled jobs, and it'll just be processed so long as you keep that virtual machine open on your desktop. And my brainstorm is to be able to put that little lightweight server into learn something or teach me mode, in which case I display the console output of the web server right on the Linux QEMU screen, so that every time you hit or do something in the Pipulate user interface, you actually see the web server respond. It's like knowing what Apache is doing or knowing what Nginx is doing, but you'll see it happen right on your desktop, and it'll give you the feeling that yes, this server is right here on your desktop under your control. And the debugging output I will refine and improve so that you know everything that's happening from the Linux boot up procedure to the running of Python and the Pipulate script, and everything that happens whenever Pipulate does something with much, much finer detail than I can provide at the speed of the web and web browsers in the Pipulate interface. I can show debugging output sometimes seconds before it has a chance to appear in the browser. And just because of buffering issues and sometimes latency with the remote servers, if it's, you know, well, my server right now is on the Rackspace cloud, so there's latency that won't happen necessarily so much when it's running on your desktop. But still, there is great value of seeing the web server debugging output on a parallel channel of communication while you're using the formal user interface in the browser. So hope that didn't all come across as blah 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 techno babble, but trust me, it's exciting stuff, and it really culminates the bringing together of these two separate projects that are wonderful on their own, but it's a you know, classic case of 1 and 1 equals 3. Together they are much more than they could be independently, and provide something that you can diagnostically and with curiosity pick apart and see what's happening underneath the hood, and have a unique insight to a highly useful application in ways that you never would if you were using some sort of paid service on a remote server or compiled software on your desktop that you can't poke around under the hood of. So that's what's coming. That's my brainstorming. That's the update on where I'm at. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon. And don't forget to subscribe and send someone over to these videos who needs to start following along now. Bye-bye.